Welcome to Curious Goldfish, a podcast community where music and curiosity come together through interesting conversations with the music makers of our world. I'm your host, Jason English. You can find Curious Goldfish in all the major podcast and social media platforms. And of course, we have all of our content on our website, curiousgoldfish.com. Gretta and Kyle Miller, it's such an honor. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, excited to be here.
So are you out in, you're in Flagstaff, right? Is that your house?
We are in Flag right now. Yeah, we're in our studio that we built in 2016.
Which is in our backyard.
It's a detached building in our backyard. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's cool. Well, again, it's a pleasure. I know you have a lot going on with family and with albums and probably shows and stuff. So thanks for taking the time. I guess I want to talk about the project that's in the works, but I just have a couple of like random questions to kind of get us going, if you don't mind. So,
yeah.
So Greta, I'll start with you.
Okay.
What's the one thing you appreciate most about Kyle as like a life partner?
Oh man, you're on the spot right now.
That's a good one. What's the one thing I appreciate about Kyle?
Dishes.
He does all the dishes.
Okay.
No, that is not my one thing. That is very kind and gracious, though. You know, I do other things, but he's amazing at that. I would say, he's. I just have to pick one. I want to list like three. If I just have to pick one, I would say he makes me laugh. We laugh together, and I think laughter is medicine, especially in a relationship. I think we have to laugh and play together. So that's the big one. But he also is quick to say sorry, and he's kind, and he's curious and open-minded, and I love all those things too.
Well, that's cool. All right, those are good things. Good job, Kyle.
Yeah.
Way to bring it. That's good. And same thing for you. What do you appreciate most about Greta?
I think it's, because people are always changing. I think probably what I most appreciate is always changing too. I think right now, the thing I appreciate most about Greta in this season of life is a listening ear. It sounds like you've been in a partnership or have been married for a long time, but for us, I think the value of having someone to bounce ideas or thoughts off of without them wanting to fix it or without them wanting to fix you or the situation is something that Greta's really good at. And I've been in need of those conversations lately, so I've been really appreciating that about her. But she has a multitude of qualities that would also fall under that category.
All right. Well, that's awesome, and I appreciate you sharing. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask the opposite, but I will ask something that I've wanted to ask you all is, do you ever get sick of each other? Just given all the things that you guys got going on, I guess it's okay if you say no, but I would kind of call bullshit on that. But like what?
I appreciate the boldness of the question.
I like how you looked at me when he asked it.
I was like, "Are you sick of me?"
I mean, I definitely need alone time sometimes. I don't think it's because I hate Kyle or don't want Kyle around, but I do think that solitude is so important for my spirit. And so yeah, I guess, I mean, we do a lot of life together. Yeah, we have this band together. When we're on tour, we're crammed in a van together and doing these big, sometimes stressful things for a month solid together. But in general, I mean, I really like having him around. I feel like we've kind of figured out a way to make it work. And I feel like we just have to communicate a lot. Like, hey, what do you need? Like, I need to just like go on a walk, or I need to, go read or go be with a friend or something. But, so I definitely need alone time, definitely need time away sometimes, but we do a lot of life together, and I'm really grateful that we get to do a lot of life together.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. No, that's good. Yeah, I mean, again, not to rehash it, but that is a lot that you all do. I mean, not just the band and the kids and the family, but I think you all are like entrepreneurs, right? Like you it's like your own business. So that just all those things kind of can contribute to a lot of stress. And so kudos to you guys for figuring it out and doing life together. It's really cool to see. So thank
I
you.
don't know if we've figured it out, but we're trying really hard. We're having fun. Yeah, I don't feel like I get tired of Greta, but yeah, I
Yeah,
think it is. Yeah, it's a funny thing to think about. I genuinely don't think I've ever been sick of her. I think
yeah,
it's mostly being just like in a space where I understand I need to be alone. But I'm
right.
pretty introverted because my day job right now, right when we're not touring, is I work in the studio and do mixing and engineering. So I'm naturally by myself a lot in that.
Yeah.
So that's
Well, I know your story is pretty well documented about Northern Arizona and the music with some of the Young Life stuff and everything. So I'm not going to like go into that because I think that's pretty well documented. But I am curious about sort of. I think you guys played music together, weren't dating, but like there was a crush, kind of back and forth. I guess was it love at first sight? And then what was the first move that Kyle made, or did you make the move? Like I haven't found that answer out. Can you take us back to that moment?
it's debated in our relationship who made the first move. So we were friends but for 2 years before we started
Mhm.
dating. Um, but yeah, love at first sight is maybe like not to be unromantic, but I don't know if it was that. Was it? Did you love me? Sorry.
I feel like there was always a certain like energy and attraction.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it wasn't like
Yeah.
certainty or love by any means. But I mean, I remember I had maybe seen him around, like we went to college together and had seen him around at a couple social events. And then I ended up going to a friend's house and they were kind of hanging out and doing a bunch of just goofy stuff. And the first time I ever like heard him play a song on the guitar, he was just like belting Since You've Been Gone by Kelly Clarkson, which is like not in his normal repertoire by any means, but I just loved like yeah, the goofiness and the joy behind that. And I'm trying to think, I mean, the first move.
I think genuinely the first move was probably made by Greta, but I made myself available for the first move.
There you go.
I
So
mean,
Yeah.
the first real move, if we want to get into details here, like we were hanging out with like a few friends and watching a movie. And I think I had like a pillow on my lap and we were sitting next to each other on a couch and I had a pillow on my lap. We were all just like group of friends watching a movie. And at some point, Kyle like laid his head on the pillow that was on my lap.
Oh boy.
So I don't know if that's the first move. Okay, so he's on the pillow, but then I, at a certain point, started playing with his hair.
Perfect.
So I
Perfect.
feel like my move was a little bolder,
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
right?
All right. Well, thanks for sharing.
Later that night, he texted me and was like, "We should go on a walk and talk." And so
Perfect.
then we started talking about what this is a little bit more, and it was really sweet.
I love that. Yeah. All right. So you all are 6 albums in, and it's been 10 years since y'all started making music. Is that right? And I think you guys are
yeah,
about to announce or have announced sort of a 10-year anniversary project. I guess what is that about? What's the timing of that, and kind of what does that entail exactly?
yeah. So we're actually gonna announce this next week that we're gonna release that on August 23rd.
Okay.
Um, the, the idea of the project. So we have 6 albums. This project didn't include any songs from our Christmas album, but what we decided to do is kind of our more um, normal times of the year albums. We decided to take 2 songs from each of those
Okay.
and redo them, kind of.
Hmm.
So yeah, the angle that we took was doing almost a collaboration with our older selves and covering basically the old songs and playing them in the way that we sing now. We changed up a couple of the lyrics. We changed the keys because I can't sing quite as high as I did on the first couple of records. So yeah, it was just sort of this collaboration between our old selves and who we are now and who we've journeyed to be. And it was a really fun process at first. Semi, what's the word? I don't want to use the word painful because that's not the right word. Uncomfortable, maybe.
Right.
Some of the songs we don't play anymore.
Right.
So it was interesting to interface with them again in a way that's like really intimate, because when you're recording a song and working on a song, you really need to give a big part of your heart to it in order for me to feel like it's genuine and something worth sharing. So it was great. Lots of good conversations were had in the midst of all that about who we've become, and wrestling with who we were then and celebrating that, and all of the kind of like mixed bag of emotions that came with that. But that, in a nutshell, is what the project is. 2 songs from each of our 5 main albums, excluding our Christmas album.
Got it.
And we basically recovered them, or covered them.
All right. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, they feel unique and they feel way different than the originals, but still the heart of it and the melody of it rings true to what they were. But it was really fun to dive back in, and there's 2 of the songs that normally Kyle would lead and now I'm leading, and one song that I would normally lead that now is more of a call and response duet. And really, yeah, some songs where it's changed less, and some songs where we rewrote the whole, half of the chorus. And so it's exciting. I'm really excited to share it with everyone.
So, Kyle, you've talked in other interviews about the challenges you had with singing the early music. I think, through like, I think that there's a couple of interviews where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't do it. I just can't, so I guess tell me, like, was that easy to overcome some of those, I don't know if there are emotional gaps or challenges with that, or had you kind of moved beyond some of that? I think you had referenced it as a little bit of bitterness, in terms of, some of those early works. Cause I think if I recall, you guys didn't really intend to build a career on music. So you sort of just made the music and not really thinking, and obviously you were inexperienced, but not really thinking like this was going to be the thing. So I think you at one point indicated, yeah, like I wouldn't have done it the way it was, but that was the moment in time.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I feel like there's a lot around. It's been interesting for me to try to figure out how to like accept the wholeness of the journey when it's been so out in the open. And not that Towers is some famous project. Like, I'm very aware that we're an indie, like, small to mid-level band, but I think it's interesting to try to figure out the ego in the midst of all of the sharing, and how to let the ego die. And there was a big season of my life where it was very difficult for me to sing certain songs in our discography, based off of what I felt like they represented at the time that I wrote them, and then contrasting that to who I feel like I have become. But I think over the last couple of years, through thinking and just being able to, I think, just growing as a person, I'm trying to not take all of that so seriously, I guess.
Right.
And just understanding that there's a great poem that we have a little line of it on the back of our vinyl, and it's by Emerson, I believe. I need to look it up. But he says, "I contain multitudes." And I like that. I think that we all contain many different versions of ourselves, and
Right.
part of the work of any human is to accept all of those versions and celebrate and laugh at it and take forward the things that were worth taking forward, and this maybe gets into the goldfish idea, of Ted Lasso, and bring forward the things worth bringing forward, and forgetting the things that are just unnecessary heavy baggage. So I interfaced a lot in this record with a few of songs that I was feeling that way towards, because I wanted to like hold my younger self and be like, I love you. I love who you were then, and I love we've become, all the Kyles.
Right.
And I think that's the story I want to tell as an artist, is to be, for Greta and I in our relationship, the journey of figuring out what it looks like to be in a partnership and the challenges and celebrations, but also, yeah, to have so many albums and have like to be lucky enough to have had a long enough career and
Right.
put out enough music to kind of, I guess, have to work with a lot of different versions of yourself every time you put a gig on. You're like,
Right. Well, I don't
yeah.
want to
So
assume anything, but are you mostly referencing like your old self and your new self sort of to that spiritual journey? You know, is that kind of the crux of it, or am I missing that?
no, you're not missing that. I think that's a part of it. I think there's also parts of it, the way that the songs were written, or but that's also, I think, why maybe they're special and why I've come to fall in love with them again, is that there was a beginner's mind that I think's important to take on all creative endeavors,
Right.
of not really knowing what you're doing, and that being kind of the magic of why it ends up being kind of cool,
Yeah.
and why people seem to be drawn to it. And yeah, the spiritual side of it was a big piece of it, but also um, that's another part of my life I feel like I've kind of come back around on, to having a bit more just gentleness and
Mm.
softness with, maybe I have had in the last 5 years, just because I really do think that the intentions of that space in my life was to be kind and love people, and it's the same now, and there's a lot of similar avenues that I take to get there
Right.
spiritually.
Right.
Some of them changed, and that's a big part of the tower story that is important, I think, to tell and not avoid, about our walk with faith, and
Right.
figuring out what that looks like to us now, and how to take forward the things we're taking forward and leave behind the things that are maybe we're evolving out of.
Yeah, I think that it was a big one, and the two songs that we chose to cover from our very first album are "Belly of the Deepest Love" and "Swelling Sea."
Mm-hmm.
Is from the first album. I almost forgot. And "Swelling Sea," and yeah, "Belly of the Deepest Love" is the song that we changed the most lyrics in. I mean, really the only song we changed a lot of lyrics in, and it was so interesting. I feel like it took us a longer time than we expected to do that rewrite, and to really sit with the song and feel out what it means to us
Mm-hmm.
now. And because the hope was not to critique or slam
Mm.
anything or anyone, but just to realize, like, oh, when we wrote this song and we were singing about this sweet connection we feel to the divine, like, we don't want to minimize that. We want to make it bigger. We want to
Right.
make it even more beautiful and expansive and inclusive. Um, so yeah, getting to sit with some of those words and taking out some of the blame and shame language, and getting to add words about just always being carried and always being free. This type of language just feels so much more full and connective. And yeah, because that's still a sweet part of our life, but we get to, yeah, just kind of resonate it with a way that's authentic to who we are now.
Okay, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said. So you all have referenced something that I think is a really perfect analogy for this. I think you guys said that you had a bike in your backyard that at one point that you were trying to fix up, and it was
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to make decisions around, okay, which parts to keep that are worth keeping and which parts needed to be kind of refreshed, I guess. And I don't want to get into doctrine or if it's too personal, like let me know. But I'm actually curious because I spent a lot of time with Young Life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In another organization called K Life, which is based on a camp in the Midwest. And I mean, I grew up going to church 3 times a week, religiously, like literally
Yeah.
religiously. And it's a big part of my childhood. And I don't have really regrets. I mean, there's I guess a few here and there, but my faith is, some days I'm like, okay, what is it that I actually believe? I guess I'm just curious because that is such an important part of your life. Like, what are those things about your faith as a Christian that you still back to the bike are going to keep, and then and then other things you've sort of like swapped in and out. Would you consider yourselves Christians anymore? Or I'm just curious because your music is so beautiful and your journey is so relatable to, I think, a lot of Christians like in their early to mid 30s to like 50s that have
Yeah,
really kind of like looked back at their childhood and high school and college experiences going, okay, that was cool for a lot of reasons, but like, I'm not so sure anymore. And I think a lot of us are still kind of working through that.
yeah. No, I think you're right. Yeah, I was just gonna say that I think there's a lot of people who grew up in that world, and there was so much beauty in it too. Um, both Greta and I would probably land on a similar space, I would say. Um, but to me, the whole conversation around like giving a title to what I believe feels really difficult
Mm,
because I think and like 3 years ago, if you would have asked me this question, I would have been like, "Nah, man." I would have felt like I have some sort of ego to preserve, or
right.
like felt like embarrassed. But I do think there's so many people that resonate with it, and the great thing is like if people disagree with me, they don't.
Right.
That's totally fine. It doesn't matter to me.
Right.
But where I personally land these days is I feel more mystic and more of just like a seeker of what I would maybe capitalize as like just the divine. Um, and there's still aspects of Christianity that are really important to me. Caring for the poor, nonviolence.
Sure.
There's lots of I think pillars of that I hold really dear to me. Um, so, and there's like still a community here that is a welcoming community to us that we love to participate in. It is not traditional in any sense with
Sure.
like the way that it goes about um, talking about that, but yeah, for me personally, I think I land more in a space of mysticism and being really okay with not knowing things, and that actually being sort of a foundation, a comforting foundation for me. Um, and yes, and truly seeking and being open to whatever the divine and God can look like, and seeing that truth in other spaces besides Christianity. To me, it's
Sure.
not exclusive to Christianity, but it is still a space that I find truth in. But yeah, I'm not sure I would.
Yeah.
It involves a larger conversation to me to be able to say like, are you this or are
Right.
you that? To me, I'm just kind of like, man, I think I'm a human who just I want to love people well while I have time on this earth, and I want to and if my faith practice helps me to do that, then I think it's true, and I think that for other people too.
Okay.
If it's causing them to live a life in a way that is being kind and taking care of other people and is rooted in love, then I don't
Awesome.
know. I think it's kind of all in, but I know a
Cool.
lot of people wouldn't agree with that, and that's totally
Yeah.
fine.
Thank you for that. Yeah, Greta, anything to add to that from your perspective, or?
Yeah, I mean, probably don't want to talk too long, but no, I mean, I love what you said. I think there's so much good in, I think, seeing like the beauty of the world around us and the bigness of maybe the idea of God, if you resonate with that. And I
Right.
think with me, there's just been such a shift of like that's not something that's outside of us that we need to like go attain. Like it's something that's already in you. It's something that's already in each of us. It's so I think really resonating with like, oh, like that is in me, and that is like love and light, and like I can care for myself and I can love myself, and how that is connective. And I can, yeah, I just think that, I mean, I really still do love like the ideas of Jesus and learning about that.
Right.
And I think it's sad how our culture has taken so much of that. and flipped it upside down and used it to persecute and exclude people and to pick sides and to cause violence, because it's just the opposite. I don't think that learning about God or Jesus means like, hey, you have to believe these things and say this certain prayer. Like, I just think that that's bullshit. I think that it's I think that it's about like literally loving everyone and like, let's care for this earth and let's care for each other and let's like make this a kinder world. So if that's the type of Christianity we're talking about, where we are partying with our gay friends and our female pastors and our immigrant friends and our people who look different and speak different, then I'm here for that party.
Yeah, that's well said. I don't know if this was one of the two songs that you picked off of Joy Alchemy, but Uncertainty comes to mind like on this topic, right?
Yeah.
And I think, and again, I'm taking a stab here because I don't know if it's on the album that you're about to announce, but one thing, I had a conversation with another artist named Sirius Bright. He's from Tennessee. He moved to Mexico City.
Yeah.
He grew up.
I'm aware of Sirius.
Yeah, he is a pastor's kid, and I just had this conversation with him like a week and a half ago where we both were talking through it. And it's like, it's okay to be uncertain. Like,
yeah,
the nuance, the mystery, like, cause we both were talking about, growing up, there was a lot of like pressure around, well, this is truth. It's black and white. And like, as you grow older, at least my experience was, you know what, it's not that clear, and it's okay. Right. And to your point,
right.
like being a seeker and, being okay with that. I think that's, I can relate to that. Right. But like the lyric that I loved was like, each path we're taking, I'm on your side. There's no way of knowing which one is right, but we can dance in the hour, dance in the unknown. And if heaven gets too heavy, we'll just let it go. Like, is that not that every lyric has to have a literal kind of tie back, but is that kind of the message that we're kind of talking about?
Yeah, I think it falls into that for sure. That song encompasses uncertainty as like an umbrella in Greta and I's life, and that certainly falls underneath it. And that line specifically felt specific to spirituality.
Yeah.
I think there was, growing up in that world, there was such a fear. If I could add anything to what this conversation, I think there was such a fear of the other and fear around like being outside of the bubble and of Christianity. And now feeling like I'm on the outside of that, it just feels like to me, everything in my life, it feels so much bigger than what words can describe in this way. And so, yeah, the word Christianity and Christian feels like it feels too small for me to encompass all things. But yeah, anyways,
that's great.
Side tangent. That song Uncertainty, it's a song about even relationships and Greta and I's relationship, and how true love has to choose each other. It can't be a control. It cannot hold it. So a big part of that song was about, a big part of the record, Joy Alchemy, was about how do you detach from the person that you're so crazy about, in a way that's not being indifferent, but in a way that's like recognizing them as like a beautiful song that passes through us, or a beautiful sunset that we get to observe. And so Uncertainty was about trying to wrap my head around that aspect of our relationship, and choosing one another, and choice being an actual choice. So that was the other side of it.
And Greta, like back to your point, so that when I was in college, again, in my I'll call it my conservative Christian Bible Belt era, for lack of a better term, I wrote it. I submitted. I was a journalist, and I was a journalism major, and I started to like write a lot, and I submitted an article to a Christian magazine for publication, and the title of it was "Exclusively Inclusive," and it was the idea about like Jesus is exclusively, again, if you're a Christian, the Son of God, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's exclusive. He's exclusively inclusive of everybody, right? The poor, the homeless, refugees, all those things. And I think I love how you said it, Greta, because whatever you call it, if that's Christianity, great. Like I'm all in. And I think, or whatever it is, but that inclusiveness I think is really important, especially like in today's world. And it's a shame that like some people have sort of thrown shade on that concept, for lack of a better term, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that it's a confusing thing because I think people, when you're fed bad theology that that says that you have to believe a certain thing or you're gonna burn forever in hell, like then it feels like love to tell someone, hey, you can't be this way or you can't live like this because you're trying to save them from burning forever in hell, right? But when you like deconstruct that and you're like, oh, what if a loving God actually wouldn't burn their children in hell forever? Right. Then like maybe there's freedom because like maybe hell's not a thing in that type of context. Maybe we can bring hell on earth now when we choose to live in violence and hate. But like when we can remove that like fear, living in fear of the other and fear of like this morbid, wretched afterlife, like makes us act in such a way that's not fully human, I don't think. And so, yeah, I think that when we can be free of that, then when we approach the other or someone who's different than us or thinks differently than us, we don't have to save them. We don't have to push our beliefs on them. Yeah. We can say, oh, like, tell me what you think. Who are you? What do you believe? I want to learn from you because you hold something different. And that's exciting and that's not scary. We can be curious and we can be kind. And so blah, blah, blah. Lots of all
the curious aspect. Like I'm all about curiosity, right? And I love your song "Curious Woman" from the Christmas album. But like curiosity is so underestimated these days. And I think again, my spiritual upbringing, there wasn't a lot of that, but whatever. And I love, Kyle, your point, because I think there's the time when I was jaded and I was, pissed and everything. And again, judging, and I love the fact that you've kind of come full circle and sort of are gentle and sort of more sympathetic, I think that's really cool. And I think your music completely reflects that, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Bitterness is a tough ground to build on.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's cool.
It's a hard place to stay. But if for me it was.
Yeah. No, it's
yeah, I like what you said there.
Yeah. Well, no, thank you. All right. So I guess back to that was deep, by the way, for for a Monday night.
Yeah, man.
It was cool.
That's great. That's what this is for.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. So back to the 10-year album, I guess how did the 2 songs per album minus the Christmas album, how did you come to those decisions?
I wish there was a really concise way to say what we did, but it was pretty random. We took it record by record. Some of the songs we still do today. Like we play The Kitchen at almost every show that we play.
Sure.
And there's a few others off of our early albums that we still enjoy playing. Once in a while we'll still play Whiskey and Wine. We didn't do Whiskey and Wine on this particular album. I think maybe there was actually a way that we did look at it. I think the way I tried to view it was I looked at the songs and said, like, is there anything more to say 10 years later with this piece of art? And that was a cool opportunity because I think all artists probably feel like they understand that you could write and write and write and record and record and record and mix and mix and mix forever. Songs could just keep like evolving and growing and continuing. And I think I was thinking like, if these songs had done that for 10 years, which ones would be the ones that I feel like I could add something to? In our we had for the first 4 years of Towers, we had a cello player, 4 or 5 years. And she since has moved on into doing a bunch of really neat things. And we had her come back and arrange all the strings for the most recent music. So it's been a while since she's played on our records, and so we thought it'd be fun to
Oh, that's
do
cool.
the most recent stuff with like a player who'd played with us like a few years ago. So
Right. Please tell
yeah,
me in Girl in Calico you keep the riff, the little guitar riff.
we keep the riff,
All right, good.
and we started out acoustic, and then we actually have a almost like a counter melody that happens with it, if you can even imagine. It's like the busiest riff in the entire world, and I made it even busier.
It's exciting.
Wow.
But I like it though, and
That was
I liked it enough to share
that was
it.
that was my gateway song. I'm sure like a lot of other people, because I think it has a ton of streams, but that was my, that's a great, I mean, streaming, everyone's got an opinion on streaming. As a listener, I love it because I get introduced to music I would have never ever heard. And again, I
Right.
think that popped up. So I got divorced after 25-year marriage 3 years ago, and I moved from Colorado to Atlanta. And
Okay.
one of the first people I met, she was like, how do you listen to your music? And I was like, oh, I'm Apple Music. And she's like, no, you got to do Spotify. It'll change your life. And kudos to her. She was right. Because one of the reasons is I came across Girl in Calico listening to a random radio playlist, and it came up, and it's incredible. So I can't wait to hear that. That's awesome. So one thing I am, again, curious about is if you can go back to the songwriting of all these songs. I think, again, you all have talked about the fact that I'm with you, Greta, on this. Because I used to be a reporter. I'm like, okay, the sky is blue, the grass is green, and I feel sad, like very literal. And then you've got Edgar Allan Poe there as your husband, who's like Mister, just beautiful poetry. It works like with you guys, working together. But have you learned to become more poetic, Greta, and artistic? And have you, Kyle, learned to become more, literal? Have you guys kind of found a way to come together a little bit, or is it kind of staying in your swim lanes?
Oh man, I feel like more than ever we've met each other in the middle with our songwriting styles. And yeah, we're at a point now where we can write and finish a song in a day together, because where it used to take months of fighting and like 7 different versions. And yeah, I think I really appreciate the way that Greta can observe something and say this is enough to just say you observe it, and you don't have to like make it so prosy to the point where no one will get it. Like people are gonna miss what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then there's a balance in that too, because also I think the gift of poetry is that it shows us what we have seen a million times through a new lens. And that's why I keep reading poetry, even about like the divine. Like to me, to read a Hafiz poem about God, or to read Walt Whitman, it's like I get this new lens because the language is not what I'm used to. So I think we meet each other in the middle. Oftentimes what we do is we kind of err more on the side with our first drafts now, being a little bit more literal and a little bit more straightforward. And then we go back to words and we say, how could we say this differently? This is what we want to say. If we were putting out like a really boring PR like press release, this is what we would say, but how do we make it like new, So
Well, good.
Yeah, I think that we have definitely learned things from each other, indeed. Yeah, but it is still sweet coming to the writing table, and maybe I'll bring an idea, or maybe Kyle will bring an idea, and if Kyle has an idea, I feel like what I want to know is like, what does this mean, or like, what's the story behind this? And I don't think every song has to have this like clarity, perfect story, but just I want to like know, I want to like put myself in the scene. I want to like feel the feelings and know what is like the message. Where's the tension? Where's the hope? Where's the whatever we're searching for to find balance and communicate something. And I think that that's been a sweet thing for us to just push and pull with each other to find how we can still have it not be hyper literal or in your face or cheesy, even for lack of better words, but also have it say something that people can resonate with. And it's awesome though. I feel like we'll have songs and we'll dial in so much clarity on like what the story is for us. And then we'll go play a show, and it's so fun to interact with people at the show. And they're like, oh, like we'll play, you know, there'll be one song someone's talking about, and someone will come up and say, this song like helped me through my divorce. And the other person will come up and say, that same song like was my first dance at my wedding, or, you know, like opposite situations.
We had this exact conversation with a guy where two people came up, and then a third came up and was like, you're the music I listen to when I'm coming out of my like psychedelic trip. And I was like, I love it, man. Awesome.
Yeah. And then there's someone coming up and like, yeah, wanting to like talk spirituality with us. And then someone coming up and just like, fuck yeah, this was a kick-ass show. And we're like, I'm just here for all of it. And like, and I love that, I guess, that is what art is. Like, it becomes art when it gets to be interpreted by the consumer and by the audience. And I mean, it's art on its own, but it's so much more alive when it lives within people's stories. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
No, that's cool. I mean, Kyle, one of my favorite quotes that you've said is, what makes Towers cool is the fact that you and Greta write songs together, you know, like that's pretty special for you all to be able to do that. Right. Yeah. I love that.
It's really become like a pretty selfish practice for us. I think, and I hope, no matter what Towers is to everybody else, I think, I hope that Greta and I write songs together until we're super, super old. 'Cause I love it. I love that it shows me how she's seeing the world and what's important to her, and what's important enough that she wants to share. 'Cause yeah, it's really vulnerable to write songs, and you can even, you know, having been together for like 14 years, it's still, you still get to the like idea for the chorus and you're kind of embarrassed to sing it. But I love that there's this newness to the process for us, and it's what makes it worth it, I think.
How have the kids changed your songwriting? You know, like do you see the world through their eyes more, or is it, you know, more about the relationship and your own experiences?
Yeah, I think they've definitely inspired our songs a lot. As far as changing our songwriting, it's so hard to say, because they've just changed us, and I guess our songwriting is an outpouring of us. So in that sense, yes, I think we've, being a parent, you learn so much selflessness. You learn, I think seeing the world through a kid's eyes is a beautiful way to see the world all the time, even into adulthood. So trying to, I think it's just all the lessons they've taught us that have inspired our music. You know, you just, you try to learn, you know, patience. You try to think about what type of worlds you want your kids to grow up in and how to pull that forward. You try to think about, what type of love, you know, you experience as a parent that's just so deep and unique. So I definitely think that's been a big part of who we've become and how we've become that, which plays into our music.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. And it's Solace and Rowan, is that right?
Yeah, Solace and Rowan. Yeah.
Great names. That's incredible. All right. So back, I guess, speaking of like eras and the 5 albums that you based the tenure on, I'm not going to ask you like what's your favorite or whatever, because that's like picking Solace or Rowan, because they're all your kids. But you know, if someone was, you know, if I go over here to my neighbor and like, hey, I want you to listen to Towers, which of the albums do you think is best representative of the entire journey? Is that possible, or are they kind of their own snapshots in time?
Maybe now it'll be this new one.
Yeah. This new one certainly would be probably, like from a content standpoint, probably the best representation.
Yeah.
So on Joy Alchemy, one of like early engagement pieces with the process, one of the things we were most interested in was figuring out how to be a beginner. And when we had done so many records together, I mean, it was our 6th album. So it felt like, man, we've done this a bunch. How do we not just fall into the old routines? And so what we decided to do was write kind of more simple to play songs so that we could perform them live in a studio with a band. And so Joy Alchemy, to me, is the best representation of like what our physical bodies can organically just give. Because there's such limitations on what you can really do to that in the post-production, that there's an acceptance of oneself in the live recording that is kind of special. So I think I feel really proud of all of our albums, and I think in one way or another, they're all beautiful and unique, and something I would still stand by. But I do think Joy Alchemy for me is like the one that, from a songwriting perspective, encompasses who we've become. And so that's usually the one that we send people to, but it's also the most recent one. So I probably would have told you that if you would have asked me this question at any point in our career. I would have just told you the most recent one.
I have kind of a secret love and obsession with our holiday album.
Yeah, that's really good.
Which feels like kind of silly because it's, some of them are covers and some of them are originals, but there was something so pure about creating that album too, because we literally were about to leave on a month-long tour, 2020, March 2020, COVID hits. So instead of leaving on our month-long tour, we just go to Colorado and go into lockdown with our band for 2 weeks and like make a holiday album in March. And it just felt like the world was like crumbling around us, and we were just going and singing like Christmas songs and writing. And I just think there's like a joy and a something in our souls that came out in that I think we're going to try to press that on vinyl for the first time this year, and I'm here for it.
I'm here for that. Perfect. And like I actually have the lyrics to Swaying Evergreens, which is on that album. This might be the first Christmas song or holiday song that I've heard that manages to weave in about making love to her in the morning.
Oh yeah.
Christmas songs about sex.
I'm like, damn. I'm like, all right. That's good for them. For the married couple.
We're kidding ourselves if that's not happening on Christmas sometimes, we can talk about it. It can be part of our songwriting.
Yeah, that song, that's special. It's just a celebration of the physical. Isn't that what Christmas is? Just celebrating flesh. And you know what? That's a beautiful part of flesh sometimes. So.
No, it's great. It's like, touch of her soft skin, the swaying evergreens, the snow silently falling, making love to her in the morning. It all seems a holy thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, not to like beat the horse dead, but like on your spiritual journey that you were on, was it different making a Christmas album, having kind of, gone through that? Like, did you see the words differently? Did you feel the music differently?
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah, I think we wanted to make I personally have a difficult time listening to Christmas music. It's not like my favorite thing, but I was like, what if we made something that was more of an indie rock album and didn't sonically really sound like Christmas music, but and engage with like some of these older hymns, but we really wanted the language of those songs to be changed to be more inclusive to all gender types, all sexual orientation, all I wanted it to be a little bit more like open-ended, I guess. And And there was a decent amount of critiquing too. I mean, Swing Evergreens, there's definitely some critiquing of purity culture and like some of that world for me.
Okay.
So
Oh my gosh, purity! I haven't heard that term in so long. It's so funny.
yeah, dude, welcome back. Yeah. Yeah, so
No,
we were it was interesting to engage with that. But also really fun because the group of people we made that with, we just all vibed with that idea. And I think not only sonically, but also, yeah, from a content standpoint, we were all excited to like rewrite the words to some of these old hymns to be more inclusive of everybody. Sorry.
All right, so just a couple more questions. I know it's getting late.
Oh, no, you're
So
fine.
with the announcement of the album, are you guys going to promote it in tour? Are you still working through that? Like, what does that look like so the fans can get excited for some of that?
Yeah, we're gonna do a small tour in the fall. And our dates are still coming together for that, and we'll announce those soon. But we'll do a small tour, and then we're gonna, we toured so much last year. We ended up from like November until basically August. We kind of were like on or off the road pretty frequently. November of 2022, or right, or no 2020. Yeah. Anyways, so a lot of touring.
Yeah.
And I think this year we were feeling like we really wanted to be home and invest in our home and our family and be here in the summer and coach soccer and let our kids, be home. We were opening for Tori Amos. We did like a 47-day tour with her last summer. So just wanting to be home. But anyways, all that to say, we will do a little tour. Yeah, and then
Awesome.
I think we have some video stuff that we'll do, and then probably some pre-sale on vinyl, and yeah, then just Greta and I yapping at people on our social media is probably the plan as of now.
Well, that sounds great. Well, again, thank you. I guess, and I don't think we talked about this overtly, but this podcast that I've kind of started it's inspired by Ted Lasso, and curiosity, which we've talked about kind of indirectly, is a big part of that. I'm going to ask each of you. Greta, I'll let you go first. You're a mom, musician, wife, all those things. I guess what at this point in your life, what are you most curious about?
What am I most curious about? I think I am curious about. I mean, I've lately been a little curious about what other art I want to create in the next couple years. I love towers. I love all the creative work Kyle and I get to do together, but we're also excited just to explore some creative projects separately. And they wouldn't even really be separately. We'd probably still be supporting each other in a lot of that, but
and recording them together in here.
Right. Right. But yeah, I think Kyle has some beautiful songs that are like just his and not Towers. And I have some poetry and some kids books and some like songs, and just I think we're both kind of like we're so excited about Towers, and we're going to keep making music, and also what other avenues of art are within us that are worth exploring. So maybe that.
All right. Well, that was a great answer. Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Kyle, what about you?
I feel like I'm a naturally pretty curious person, so it kind of changes semi-frequently, but my latest like curiosity has been the human brain and our heart, and specifically the type of electromagnetic field our hearts create. And I've been reading all of these nerd articles about that and really enjoying what that could mean and the beauty of that. And then I've been reading a lot about meditation. There's this guy James Doughty who has this really great book called Into the Magic Shop that I just read, and I've been loving kind of just the curiosity of watching my brain do its thing, and trying to learn how to meditate and do that lately has been probably the biggest thing. But yeah, amongst that, some of the other things about the human body that I think are interesting. So those have been my latest like late night doom scroll Google articles.
Perfect. And you have kids, and you've got a business, and you've got all the things. So yeah, good for you, Al.
It's a big juggle.
It was an honor. I can't thank you guys enough for your time, and we're excited for the new album. Yeah, we just really appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise to you, and thanks for caring, and thanks for reaching out and having a conversation with us. It was really fun.
Yeah, thanks for asking great questions, sharing your space with us.
Oh yeah, no, it's my pleasure. Thank you all.
You are a dog-eared page, somewhere that I'd like to stay. But you teach me a traveling song, 'cause I'll never arrive. I miss the way we were then, the best kind of contradiction. Simple and steadfast, childlike intuition. You are the love that I carry. Turns out holding the weight keeps me steady. If I am a tightrope walker, you are the line that I walk upon. You are the line that I walk upon. Drive under freckles of night, I'm scattered like them most of the time. You're the wind coming through the window and messing my hair. Shame on me, shame on you, for thinking that I could prove the way that I felt watching the snow fall. You are the love that I carry. Turns out holding the weight keeps me steady. If I am a tightrope walker, you are the line that I walk upon. You are the line that I walk upon. It's the